Hi, it's Paul Banis, the GreatDad.com, and thank you very much for joining either the podcast or the YouTube version of the podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you took just a second to subscribe either on your podcast app or in YouTube. It doesn't really do anything. It's not going to send you any emails. It's just going to show up more often on your feed, and it does me a lot of good in terms of getting more exposure for this work I do to support dads. I'd also like to invite you to come to my page, GreatDad.com/go, if you'd like to discuss more about any of the issues that we are covering within the podcast, especially if there's any way I can help you to be a sounding board in your own struggles to be a dad and to be there for your family. So take a look at that. It also includes a link to my course on gratitude, where at GreatDad.com/gratitude with a offer to take that course for free. So see you in a second. Hey, it's Paul Banis with GreatDad.com, and I'm here again with my weekly series talking to dads about modern fatherhood and an important concept in a lot of the stuff that we talk about, and a lot of what I do in coaching is really about around some vague concept of happiness. So I've got a happiness expert today, Leighton Campbell, who's with me today. Welcome, Leighton.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
So you've done a deep dive into this concept of happiness. I know people sometimes say the happiness is an end product, or it's part of the whole, the path. What led you to really do this examination and the discovery that you've done?
So I was sitting around with my kids, and we were having a conversation about happiness, and I was moderating the conversation and getting their input and so on. I was like, "Hey guys, let's see if we can come up with an equation to measure someone's happiness." So they're throwing out ideas. I'm moderating. I'm throwing out ideas, and at the end of the conversation, I look at it and I'm like, man, this looks like there's something here, right? So it was very rudimentary at that point, but I'm in a business networking group and I was the educational coordinator at the time. So every week, I was responsible for bringing a topic that we would go over and spend about 4 minutes or so in front of the group and kind of explaining the topic. So it could be on business life, anything that would just be beneficial and that kind of thing. So I had about a week to polish it up, do some more reading, research, and so on. And I did the presentation. Now, keep in mind, I've been in the group 13 years now. I was the educational coordinator 7 times. So it's 7 times 50 presentations a year,
Wow.
basically getting no response other than on the way back to my seat, somebody gives me a high five or something like that. But after I did this presentation, there's about 40 people in the chapter. Almost everyone called me, texted me, emailed me, and said how impactful what I said was, how I struck a nerve, how it resonated with them. And I was really, really blown away by the response that I got, because I know these people, they wouldn't tell me it if it wasn't true, and I know it to be true. So that was about 3.5 years ago. The book has been written, book tour has been had. It's been kind of a lot of things that have gone into it now, but that is the origin story of the book.
So I'm kind of interested in your feeling about why it resonated so much with people. Since I know one of the questions you asked, and we'll get into the dynamics and the happiness questionnaire that you have on the website. But one of the basic building blocks is, are you safe? Are you secure? Can you feed yourself? It's basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't have any of that stuff, it's impossible to be happy because you're just trying to eke out just stay alive from day to day. But do you think we're maybe in a time when people have a little bit more mental flexibility to ponder these big questions? Because these kind of questions usually were only, tossed around by the very elite, or the philosophers of the time in ancient Greece or in China or whatever. But I don't know if people really had the time or the luxury to even talk about, am I happy?
Yeah, I think that's actually why I struck a chord, because I was in front of 40 business people who are pulled in all types of directions from their families, their clients, them trying to hit their goals. They probably haven't taken time. A lot of them haven't, and the ones that reached out to me, I think, so they even expressed that to some degree. Is like, I haven't really taking the time to like evaluate this part of my life
Mhm.
and how am I showing up in this part of my life? And are there things that I'm taking for granted that I shouldn't be taking for granted? And so on. So it's kind of open Pandora's box. So I think the genesis of the response I got was because people are not really thinking about this on a day in, day out basis because of all the things that they have going on.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's in America. It's really this is really and I'm sure a lot as well as with solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, there's so much focus on getting the thing done or succeeding or making another buck that a lot of people don't take the time to do that. They know if they're, I guess they know if they're failing and they feel bad, or if their marriage is failing, they know they feel bad, but they don't take a lot of time to think about what are those other components or what am I doing actively to become, happier or more fulfilled.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I think we a lot of people are so activity driven and I'm doing all the things, um
Yeah.
but until unfortunately for some people, until something bad happens, they don't really take the time to uh, appreciate the people that are in their life that are that bring them so much joy. Like they just think that they're always going to be there. They don't take the time to make sure that they're connected with people. You
Hmm.
know, I people being lonely or isolationism, that is a reality for many many people.
Yeah.
You can have these surface level uh, relationships where you say hi and bye to someone at the gym or something like that, but that's about it. And you come and go to work, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Um, some people don't know, like we were hardwired to be in community with one another, and developing that is very, very important.
Yeah, I've got a course on resilience, and it's interesting what you say about some people having, being happy and seemingly just naturally happy, and then other people who are self-defined unhappy. But the people who are happy, they can fall into a trap or something bad happens, and then they're put to the test, right? To whether their happiness is just something that they kind of are lucky enough to be a smiley person versus somebody else who's has to work on it.
Yeah. Paul, I need to take a drink real quick.
Okay.
I'm sorry to be the second one.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you know, when someone has to work at something, it is like forefront of their mind.
Mhm.
When something comes natural to someone, they take it for granted.
Right.
And then when something comes out of left field and totally upends their world, they may find themselves less prepared to deal with it. And I would say that I fell in that situation. Fortunately, I had read a book about happiness, and it kind of let me know, man, like I was under the impression that everyone is happy. Everyone was like I am. Took it for granted. And then um, after reading that book, I was like, wow. And the title of the book was Happiness is a Serious Problem. And after reading that book, I realized that I had something that was very important that I needed to protect and that I couldn't take for granted. I needed to actively work on protecting this. And I had no idea. But a couple of years after that, I went through a divorce. It was a very challenging time. I was separated from my children. Well, not me. I went from 100% access to 50% access. Very difficult. But throughout it, I knew that I had like a moral obligation to be happy, and protecting that was, definitely important.
Yeah. Yeah. So well, maybe we should at this point go through the questionnaire or the components, either the way you want to define it, because there is this questionnaire at yourhappinesseq.com that you can take that gives you a score. Mine was 83. I think you said yours was similar in that area.
Yeah,
Maybe
right in that
we're
ballpark.
happy-go-lucky people, but I wasn't always this way. I mean, I was very work focused and very driven, classic type A behavior, lots of productivity, but not a lot of joy out of that productivity. And I know you have to learn about it. So let's break it down, because I think some of those things are in parallel with what I know about happiness, and then we can talk about each one. So the first one we said was basically having your basic needs met, so you're not hungry. What would be the second one?
The second one is, do you belong to any groups that meet regularly and have a significant
Yeah.
meaning to you?
So
That's,
important. Yeah. I,
yeah.
I don't know if that I don't know if that's a recent like if there was any studies on that, but uh, I think that's what everybody is saying now is that this isolation we're seeing in America today, where people either can't get out or they don't get out. Uh, Something has to be done about that, and I don't know if it's whether some larger force like the government takes a role in that, or whether we have to each do it ourselves. But talk a little bit about that
Yeah, I
phenomenon.
think kind of why I think it's happening right now. It's the pendulum, I hope, swinging in the opposite direction. You see cafes now in Europe where there are no screens allowed.
Hmm.
Um, it's a private business, so you can do whatever you want, have screens not, but they choose no screens. So people are in there having conversations, drinking coffee, playing board games. I think that is huge. But generally, being in groups, uh, again, that pendulum swinging back where we've kind of removed ourselves in a lot of ways, especially having gone through a pandemic
Right.
where we were separated from one another. People are wanting to connect. Um, of course, I belong to that business networking group. That's one of the groups I'm in. I'm married, 4 children. That's another group I'm in. But a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
important group to me is my jujitsu academy.
Hmm.
Uh, I get so much joy out of being in and around them. And, we're all working on a similar goal to try and get better in jujitsu, but it is so much more. And I think people um, need to understand that we have a biological need
Hmm.
for connection to other people and then actively pursue that connection.
Yeah, and it's almost one of those things like forcing yourself to go to the gym even though you don't want to go. I know when I was working corporate job and like 60 hours a week, like just to join a club and just to go to things like, oh my God, I'm just exhausted at the end of the day. But getting that like once a week or every couple of weeks meeting or a bowling league or a softball league or whatever it is that gets people together, it's like you say, it's almost like a must do activity, right? If you don't have any other community.
Yeah, it's so important because life is going to happen regardless if you have people or not. And if you have a strong base of support, I guess resilience is one of the things you talk to, but I would imagine someone who has a strong base of support is going to be probably in a better position to deal with some of the hardest things that life can throw at you than someone who has no one. So not only you're not in a group because of what they can do for you, you're also contributing to the group,
Yeah.
which kind of goes into the next one, which so the next one, the third question is on an A plus to F scale, what is the value you bring to the group that you belong to?
Mhm.
And that's important.
So is that different from what you do in other ways to help people? Like let's say you're not part of a group, but you do Meals on Wheels or something, and you do it by yourself, but you're doing something that gives back. Is it the same type of thing, do you think that or are those two separate activities? One is giving of yourself, and another one is being part of a group.
I would think that they would be different.
Hmm.
Both important and both have a lot of value. But if you're, say, feeding the homeless by yourself and you're not connecting with those homeless people.
Right.
Now, if you're going out there and you're connecting
Yeah.
with the homeless people that you're giving food to and you have a relationship and they know about your family, you know about their history and so on, I would argue that that is a group
Yeah.
that you could be getting tremendous benefit from. But if you're just dropping off meals by yourself, you're not connecting with anyone. I don't think you're scratching that itch that we have for community. Now that is an amazing thing. If you're doing that, that's awesome. I don't think that substitutes the need to be in a group of people who are expecting you to be there. You're looking forward to seeing them. You're
Hmm.
helping them out in some way. They're helping you out in some way. And then there's an actual community there. I think it's
Okay.
two different things.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Number four.
So number four is on an A plus to F scale, how would you rate your level of gratitude? And so right up your alley, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Gratitude is one of the, okay, so there is an equation. It is pretty geeky in terms of how, but it's an actual like equation. So there's numerators and denominators and exponents and so on. But gratitude I put as an exponent in the way that I laid out the equation, because exponents are one of the most powerful functions in math. And I wanted to put gratitude in a place that had a big impact on the outcome of your score.
No, okay.
So um, gratitude is also one of the variables that I feel impacts all the other variables. So every other variable is made better, shows up better, and more impactful if you can add gratitude to it. So gratitude is very, very important.
Yeah, I do a course on gratitude that everybody can get for $1 if they put in podcast at GreatDad.com/go. But one of the basic things we say in that course is just the act of writing down at the end of the day the things you were grateful, whether they're big or small, a cup of coffee, a kiss with your wife, whatever it is, and in the morning saying what you're grateful can totally change your entire outlook. It's almost that simple. There's certainly a lot more you can do to develop that. What have you learned about that aspect, whether it's the big things, the little things, how that's, what are the things that are the things that we really need to be notice that we should be grateful for?
Okay. So I don't I'm going to take your course because I'm interested in the approach on it. Um, so far to this point, I have not been a person that keeps a journal or does anything like that. But there are a couple things that I do that help me focus when it comes time for me to uh, to focus on my gratitude. A lot of it I do naturally, and some of them I have to actually work at. First two, kind of morbid, possibly, but it works for me. The first thing is that I know I'm not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
My time on this planet is limited. So I am really thankful for the time that I have when I have a chance to talk to someone, interact with them, if I can help them in any way, brighten their day, give it knowledge, be there just to hear something that they want to share. That is very impactful. Now I don't do it all the time. I'm not perfect, but um, knowing and being thankful for the time that I have here has definitely, it makes my gratitude tangible. Okay.
Hmm.
The other thing is I know that the people that I love are not always going to be here.
Mm,
So that is another thing that really, really makes my gratitude tangible. And that kind of dovetails
mm,
into like part of my divorce story. So um, I took it for granted that my children were just going to be with me forever in the traditional sense and the way that I
yeah.
thought it would be, when I got married. I thought I'm married, my kids will be here. Eventually they'll go off to school or something else. And then the relationship will be different at that. I never planned for a time when they would, they would still be young and they would not be with me.
Yeah.
And when it happened, I decided that, um, okay, I have 50% of the time. I'm going to do the best that I can to make that time count.
Yeah.
And we did things together in retrospect that I would never have done had I stayed married. Now, this is
Yeah.
not a commercial for divorce. I'm actually married right now, and I love my wife and even my ex-wife. We had great times, and things kind of went the way that they went. You know, life happens. It's all good. But some of the things I did, I wouldn't have done. For example, my son came to me one day and said, "Dad, I saw a picture of someone driving their car through a tree. Was that a real picture?" I was like, "Yeah, I think so. I think that's real." I was like, let's look it up. So we went online, we looked it up. Like, wow, that was really cool. He must have been, I don't know, 8 or something like that. So I was like, "You want to go see it?" He
Is
was
it
like,
like a giant redwood type thing? Like
"Oh
a,
yeah, yeah." So he was like, "We've had other trips like that before this conversation, so they know that if I say, okay, we're going to go do something, we're going to go do it."
yeah.
So I said, "You know what? Let's go this summer." And that summer, we drove from Miami to Redwood National Forest in California. For those who don't know, it's coast to coast United States. And we drove our car through a tree. And the point of that is, it's like with that, again, making your gratitude tangible is like, I know that I'm not going to be here. I hope to God, will allow me to, my kids to bury me. That would be, not everyone has that, but I hope that that's my situation. Um, but I know they may not always be here, so I'm going to make the best that I can with the time I have. At the same time, I have to work. I have a lot of responsibilities and so on. So it's not like every moment of my day I'm trying to, be with my kids and, that's not how it is. I let them know that I work so that way we can do these things. And I try and like make up for the time when just regular days at home, regular weekends and so on. But then we do try and do these epic adventures, and we've had many that we get these memories from them that will last forever for sure. I have no doubt when I'm on my deathbed, I will be thinking about some of the things we've already done.
Well, it's interesting that you say it's almost that happiness or that the gratitude is linked to potential for loss. And I know a lot of people talk about the meaning of life. There wouldn't be a lot of meaning in life if you went on forever and you didn't have a progression, you didn't have anything to benchmark yourself on, and you didn't know that it was going to come to an end at the end. But aren't there other things though that are eternal? Like the sun is shining and it's a beautiful, at least here in San Francisco, it's a beautiful blue sky day. That in itself is something to be grateful for. Do you see that as a component too?
For sure. I have a list actually in the book for
Okay.
that chapter. So one of the things is called Find the Beauty.
Yeah.
And nature is a huge source
Yeah.
of beauty. And again, on some of these trips we've gone to, like seeing one of the things that I saw in college was open sky. It was like a sky with stars so bright you could see the Milky Way and almost every star with your naked eye.
Yeah.
Um, and that is something that we've tried so many times on so many of our trips to duplicate that sky and have not been successful. But we have seen together really amazing skies, and it's so beautiful. Like some of the canyons, even here in Florida. I mean, I live in a beautiful state. We get great weather sometimes of the year, and the ocean and so on. It's like you see something, appreciate the beauty in it. Another thing, is I wasn't born in America. I was born in Jamaica, and I'm very thankful. And I think about this a lot. There's a lot of people from many parts of the world that would love to be here, and
Mm.
I am here.
Yeah.
And that is a great source of gratitude for me. So it's not only the morbid stuff. There's a lot of great stuff and positive, more traditional things to be thankful for. But those are some of the ones that I mentioned.
Okay. All right. So moving on to five.
So five, we're talking about expectations. So the question is, when a meaningful situation does not go as expected, negative impact on your emotions last, and now you have three options: short time, moderate time, long time.
Yeah.
This kind of, I wrote the book, I've done a lot of research and all that, and I wish I could say short time for myself. But if I'm being honest, and there's no reason to take the quiz if you're not going to be honest with yourself.
Right.
Be honest with yourself and kind of see where you fall. I fall in the moderate category just because it does take me um, kind of some time to kind of process stuff. And
Yeah.
then I have to logically get to the point where I've made it make sense in my head, and then I can move on. And
Yeah.
before I do that, it's just hard for me. Now, I'm not prescribing that. This is something I'm working on. So don't do that. But that is something that
Yeah.
I'm working on for
Yeah. That's
sure.
a classic, at least for me, that's a classic element of resilience is that ability to bounce back and not spend days pondering, somebody who flipped you off in traffic or something, which, I've had times when I've been prone to that, ruminate for a long time on totally ridiculous things, but it doesn't lead to happiness. Okay, number six.
Number six is do you believe your life has a purpose?
Oh, yes, the why.
Yeah, yeah. That's a big one. That's a
Yeah.
big one for a lot of people. I feel from a young age, I talk about this in the book, but I feel from a young age, I know what my purpose
Yeah.
is.
Wow.
And it is uh, to be a good husband and father. I've said that since I was 13. Part
Mm,
of the reason is because my father was not a good husband and he was not a good father. So for myself, I wanted to improve on that. And for some people, maybe being a good husband and father comes naturally and it's like they're on to bigger and better things and more power to them. But for me, I never really saw it. And for me, it was like a huge mountain to get over. And I guess I'm at the point now where at least to this point, and if I were a betting man, I would say I would continue. I've been a really good father to my children. I haven't been perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes, but they know that I've tried. Being a husband is a lot harder. It's a lot harder. I also try at that. I think I'm a better father than I am a husband. Although in the order of my priorities, I think my priority as a husband is above my priority as a father. I think in order for me to really show up the best way I can for my children, I need to model that relationship with their stepmom now, with and that kind of thing. So
That's really interesting. I mean, that there's a thing that people are talking about right now, the why, and I do think it's worth that introspection because people in the past they never even pondered that idea. They just want to get through the day and feed their family and everything else. Maybe there was a loose idea of the why, but even that role of a father. I do another course on being a present father, being an intentional father, and just defining that as something that you want to, succeed at in that not monetary kind of way, but be that person that you're talking about takes some definition and some consciousness.
yeah, for sure.
We're not all going to
Kind
win Nobel prizes, but still, that's
exactly.
a
Yeah.
lofty objective.
I mentioned that in my book. I mean, I'm probably not going to be remembered in 100 years or so, but if I've made an impact on my children, that is enough for
Yeah.
me. So, like trying to hit those benchmarks and kind of touched on it very slightly is like to a large degree, it's like, okay, well, what did my father do that I didn't like that I can now do differently with my children? So one of the things, he's passed away now. I've really kind of gone through a process of like forgiveness and so on. So I have no ill will to my father, and he had a million times harder childhood than I had. So he was pouring out of a vessel that was very flawed. So it's all good. So I don't say any of this with disdain or disrespect or anything like that. But one of the things that my father would do is that he would, when we were together again, he left when I was 13 years old. We live in Florida from 6 to 13. Every year he told us we were going to Disney World.
Oh,
We,
one of those.
and we never went.
Yeah.
We never went.
Yeah.
So with my kids, I tell them, if I ever tell you I'm going to do something, I'm
Yeah.
going to do it.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, there may be times that I'll say something off cuff. That doesn't count. But if I look you in the eye and I say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. You have my word on it.
Yeah.
And so when I tell them, I could bring my kids in right now and tell them something really, really kind of preposterous that I'm going to do or that we're going to do together, and they will believe me because
Yeah.
we have done crazy things already.
Yeah, my daughter's got a real strong ear for that. Whenever adults promise anything, she like you got a radar like I don't know, they're really gonna follow through it, and that's a sin. It really plays a role in how they see you later on, where you because it's easy to give them that momentary joy. We're all going to Disneyland, but
Yeah,
they want the follow they want the follow through.
yeah, you got to follow up.
Okay, number seven.
Number seven is just really follow up to number six is on an A plus to F scale. How would you rate your progress towards achieving your purpose in life?
Mm,
Yeah, and that
yeah.
yeah. So like I trace a lot of my decisions. Like, what is the origin of this thing that I'm currently not this
Mm,
thing, but this thing too. The origin of almost everything I do when I'm at my best and I'm going in the direction I should be going is like I'm trying to meet that purpose that I have in my life. It's like I'm doing this specific thing because I want to leave a legacy for my children. Like if I'm when I'm gone, a lot of times they don't listen to me in terms of like what do I know? I mean, to some degree they're getting a little bit older, so they kind of realize I maybe know a couple things, but they're still resistant on some level. They're going to have something that they can go back to and be like, okay, well, these are some of the most important ideas that my dad had. So maybe I'm open to hearing it now, that kind of a thing. Also for my wife, I'm, just being out in the world and every time you'll see any bio on me, the first thing that you will see is husband. That is number one. So every time she sees that, she is one of the most supportive people that I have around this project. And we've never spoken about that, but
mhm.
she's seen my other podcast. She sees the thing on the back of my book. She sees the website. It all starts with husband because I feel that there's an order to things. And I don't think I could really be a good father if I was not trying to have a good, productive, positive loving relationship with my wife.
Mhm. That's a really good one. I mean, it's one thing to set up an objective, but it's another thing to follow through, especially on something that's as long term a project as your actual why. Well, this is really it's really interesting. The quiz. I mean, I think everybody would take it. It's just 7 questions long. It'd take you less than 2 or 3 minutes to do it, unless you really get deep into the thinking of how you should do it. But each one of the elements is so key, and I think one of the values of taking it is just to see where you fall in that score. If you're getting an F on one of the components or a lower score, that's food for thought, right?
For sure. And that I think is the idea of the equation. It's to identify, again, we're all busy. We all have a million things
Yeah.
going on. How can you identify like maybe one area that you can work on and improve? If you don't, if okay, I want to be happier. It's like, well, where do you start? This is a
Yeah.
great, this is a great starting point.
Yeah.
Take the quiz, see where you were below where you felt you could be or should be, and then that can be an area that you work on. Of course, I have a book. There's a million books out there, a million other resources. You may not need any of that stuff. Probably would help, but once you can be aware, which is one of the key concepts in the book, is awareness. It's like if you're
Yeah.
not aware that you have a deficiency in your own, I'm not telling you have a deficiency. I'm saying you've taken the quiz,
Right.
you've identified your own deficiency, and now you're going to try and
Right.
improve that. Awareness is huge.
Yeah. And getting started on that project earlier, the better. I think the unexamined life isn't worth living, but the unexamined life until 50 isn't as good as starting at 20 and kind of having an idea of a lot of these core concepts, which were completely foreign to me when I was 20.
Compound interest applies more than just it's
Yeah, there you go. Well, you can find the quiz at yourhappinesseq.com, and you've got this book coming out in February that
Yep,
I guess outlines some of those concepts, and then gives some of your personal experiences and ideas around each one of them.
for sure. Each chapter or each variable has its own chapter where I discuss its importance, ideas on how you can optimize. We don't really talk about maximizing because that can be an issue where someone's like, I'm going to take this quiz and I'm going to get 100%. That is a recipe for unhappiness. So don't do that. And I talk about this in the book. You're really trying to optimize. So maybe at a certain point in your life, you're kind of your cup is full. And you have to just be aware of that. Like I'm doing what I can right now, and this is okay. But when you realize you have capacity to do more and you want to do more, that's where you can kind of start to work on that. But yeah, that's that.
Yeah, I love it as a first step. I mean, some of these things maybe they come really quickly. I mean, integrating a little bit of gratitude in your life is relatively simple, but a lot of it is staying with it and not just reading the book or reading the quote, but actively doing this every day. So let's say the book will be available February 4th, and you can find you also at your Happiness EQ on Instagram as well.
Yeah, Instagram is our preferred
Okay.
social media platform because that's everything goes there first, and we have the most engagement and things going on there. So really great stuff. We went on a book tour. We did interviews with people. You can see some of those interviews. We're on the street asking those questions live, getting into deep conversations. Really, really interesting. Some of that
Yeah.
stuff is there too.
Okay, great. Well, Leighton Campbell, nice. Thanks to you for joining me today and talking about this. It's something I work on all the time, both personally and trying to help people with other courses. And I appreciate any other resources that get people to be more mindful of it and take steps. All right. So Paul
Really
Baines with
appreciate it.
GreatDad.com. Thank you all for joining. You can find my coaching offerings at GreatDad.com/go, as well as a course on gratitude and a bunch of other things. So until next time, stay strong.